Welcome to Acumen Analysis, the show where we discuss the economic, market and political decisions that are impacting you and your business.
Hello and welcome to Acumen Scotland. I am Stuart Thompson. I'm UK partner and I've got here Jack Borgdellini, and we are in the home of Scottish football. Down the road is Little Hampden, Wee Hampden, but here, this is Hampden, the home of Scottish football, where a lot of iconic moments over the years, and we've now got Scotland in the World Cups. So Jack, welcome, and please let us know what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really exciting year. I think Scotland qualifying for the first World Cup in not far off 30 years is a massive deal for the nation, and there is great excitement starting to build for the summer. And I think maybe there'll be a small exodus of people heading over to the States in the summer to get behind the team. But equally, I think we'll see that community spirit really pull through during the summer, and everyone get behind the team and hope that they go far in the tournament.
Yes, we've all got high hopes. I'm a bit older than you, so I remember the high hopes in 1978 where we had a cracking team, world-beating team. Not quite sure where we are this time, but we've got high hopes. I'm starting to get offered tickets, which is great. So we will see. But, it's got a big impact. Positivity is a huge impact on the economy and how small businesses manage to succeed with, an upbeat environment means more people spend, therefore there's more income for the small owner-managed business. How do you see the World Cup having an impact?
Yeah, I think we've obviously done in other episodes some of the challenges that are facing the hospitality industry, but we really think that the World Cup is going to have a positive impact on the industry, and we've seen Aberdeen Council announce that they've agreed to late night opening hours for the games that are in the early hours of the morning, which I think is a great step, and again hopefully will help generate a lot of income. And let's hope that some of the other councils, I know there are discussions happening, may follow suit, and it's a great opportunity. And like you say, everyone is going to get behind the team and pull together and hopefully support local business at the same time, which is great. And like you say, tourism side, if you've got businesses that are selling trips for the World Cup and tickets and the whole experience, I think there's a real growth there, and there's a desire for people want to go and support the team. So I think whether it's done by physically going over to the States or supporting them here back at home, I think it will have a real positive impact on the hospitality and tourism sector. I can only see that being a positive win for the economy.
And I think, the Tartan Army, very good at travelling abroad, quite vocal. Do you think that's going to help spread the word of come to Scotland, come and see it, this iconic land?
I think so. I think you've got to say that the Tartan Army are probably one of the most iconic fan bases around any sport across the globe, and everywhere they go, they make friends and connections. And I think yeah, if people are ever thinking about visiting Scotland, maybe seeing the Tartan Army there and speaking to them and engaging with them might be a positive step to think, you know what, I'd love to go over it and see Scotland, see more of it.
I always thought whiskey and golf were the best exports, but maybe actually it is this army.
Could be. I think it's that they'll get behind the team in huge numbers, I'm sure, and I think like you say, that can only be a positive step for spreading the word of Scotland and what a great country it is.
And of course, we're going to a country in America where we've always had great relations over the years, and maybe unusual relations at the moment in the current times. But there's a lot of affinity with America.
There is, and particularly, even if you don't like him, you have to say Donald Trump has strong connections with Scotland, with several golf courses and resorts, and obviously going back through his ancestry, coming from Scotland as well. It's again, it's free advertising, should we say for Scotland, and he always speaks very positively. And obviously during his visit last year, made the effort to be up in Scotland for a few days, and I think that again just keeps building the profile of Scotland as a nation in only a positive way.
Well, then the history's there. I mean, Andrew Carnegie from a long time ago, he was Scottish but made his wealth in America. So there's a lot to a lot of times of a lot of history.
Exactly. And if we're getting exposure in America one of the largest economies in the world, can only be a positive thing, I think, for the for.
Well, that's right, I agree. And hopefully the Scottish little hat with the ginger hair at the back, we'll start seeing that around the whole of Europe as people follow the fashion trend of the Tartan Army.
That's it. And I think the hope really is with the team that I think what we see is team spirit and the ability to come through adversity. I think during the qualifying campaign, from speaking to fans, there was a general feeling that we're not playing that well, but we find a way to get a result. And I think that's what has maybe been missing for a period of time. But this team seems to have that resilience and spirit. And even the Denmark game that finally sealed the place in the World Cup, it was a roller coaster of emotions for anyone that watched that game, from highs to lows to ultimately the biggest high possible.
Yeah.
With a shot going in from your own half to seal the win. It's quite an incredible way to get there. But I think that the hope is that this is the start of something, and seeing Scotland now starting to qualify for major tournaments more regularly is a real positive step. Obviously qualified for the last Euros, now in the World Cup. I think let's hope that becomes the norm.
Platform to build on. And what about other sports? What do you see Scotland doing? I mean, obviously we're here about football, but we've started the Winter Olympics is soon.
Yeah, Winter Olympics is another great area that we see some of the probably maybe lesser known sports come to the forefront, and we all become experts in weird and unusual sports. But certainly, I think there's high medal hopes for even more success than has been seen previously. I think particularly obviously curling, I think there's a strong hope that medals will come through there as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about. We've obviously got Six Nations and rugby coming to the forefront, and again another great event that will see Edinburgh come alive over the period during the games coming thick and fast. So yeah, no, I think it's an exciting time with a lot of exciting sport. And I think if you go back to football, seeing the Premier League be more competitive than it's ever been this year, with perhaps the Old Firm dominance being broken up by Hearts this year. It'll be interesting to see whether they can hold out, or whether one of the Old Firm come through and take the title from under their noses.
Will be the first time in 20 plus years, I think.
Yeah,
probably since Aberdeen too.
Yeah, it's
under Ferguson.
It's quite an incredible story, really. What is happening there with a relatively small budget compared to the Old Firm. So I think it would be quite the sort of David versus Goliath story for them to pull through and get that win.
But that's great for grassroots sport. The sports that it doesn't matter what sport it is, but the ones with the youngster starting out being active, it's healthy. Often it's it's relatively cheap to participate, and then you get to enjoy potentially watching or even participating, if you're lucky enough, the successes of the internationals and the professionals.
Absolutely, and I think seeing these perhaps shock results and teams that maybe haven't won for a while coming through and winning it gets that belief back in that maybe sometimes lost, that my team doesn't really have a chance of winning or finishing in the top half, whatever the ambition might be. But I think what we're seeing now is that it is possible if a team is well managed and well run, and has a plan and a strategy. It's the same as in business. Those that can put a plan together and identify quality players and a way of playing and a style and put that out there, you will get success. And I think that's a real positive step. And I think that's where we can see business and sport interlinking in many ways.
Well, sport's a great community. It brings people together in a unique way where everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet. It doesn't matter about background. You're all supporting the same goal. And I think that's great. And business wants to see that. That's where sponsorship and participation and getting your workforce into sort of a team building or community type sport, it's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I can honestly say, I'd say my entire professional career, I don't think I've had a week go by where I haven't spoke to a colleague about the football, the cricket, the golf, whatever it may be, because that's it is, like you say, brings people together, and you can get debate about what's happened or what's going wrong or what's going right. It's the thing that people feel passionate about, and I think it, like you say, brings communities and people together.
I mean, clearly football's big business. Football, American sport, American football as well. These are very valuable football clubs. The players, their assets are incredibly valuable and traded every now and again under the sort of the regulations. It's amazing to see how an individual can be worth so much money. And over such a short period of time. It's not lifetime earnings we're looking at. It's got a contract for normally up to 5 years. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I think it's an area where, if you think going back to the accounting side of things for a second,
Yeah.
I actually find that fascinating as well. How do we account for player values, contract values, these things? It's a really interesting business and requires judgment. How do you say that a contract's potentially impaired because a player maybe isn't as worth as much as you paid for them or something like that?
Certainly that was an issue that arose with the fair play rules.
Yeah.
Where the FIFA's rules that the accounts have been able to take advantage, a bit of creative accounting, we're taking advantage of them. And now there's less judgment in terms of doing the allocation for the fair play, but that's not the same as your commercial accounts.
Yeah. And it's all these, I think the fair play is a great scheme, and I think it does level the playing field somewhat, and we're starting to see that probably coming in south of the border in the English game, are probably a little bit more being implemented, where maybe the golfing spend is significant and the losses incurred are eye-watering. Up here, we've seen the same with Rangers having to be smarter how they work things to counteract losses, etc. It is a challenge, and like you said, it comes back to good management of the club and good use of funds and marketing and all of these ways of how do we bring in income, and we see clubs finding loopholes all the time that I think FIFA and the governing bodies are trying to close, because you see I think we've seen a few deals where players have you've bought one of their youth players for what looks like maybe a slightly exaggerated fee, and then you've got the same transaction effectively coming the other way with a player. It's almost a like for like swap, but you're exchanging a high value of money to try and effectively defeat the fair play rules. So it's a real interesting dynamic that has a lot of thought that needs to go into it. And like you say, I think the rules will only continue to develop. But yeah, we see the impact of possibly poorly run clubs. We see, obviously, south of the border, we saw the incredible story of Leicester winning the Premier League, probably one of the greatest shocks of all time. And now, sadly, we see them not even in the Premier League, facing point deductions because they're incurring too many losses. And that shows you how quickly things can change. And then on the other scale, you see, obviously, the story of Wrexham, for example. We talked about Hearts up here, but Wrexham bought for a relatively small fee. Obviously, you've got the Hollywood connection, but we're seeing them spend sensible money within their means because of the marketing side and the promotions and growing effectively a global fan base that follow them. And now that investment is worth significantly more than it was paid. And they're one step below making it to the Premier League, and the ultimate probably achievement from non-league to the Premier League in a relatively short period of time.
The Wrexham, it's a Hollywood story in itself.
It really is.
What it's done to the community of Wrexham, and what was effectively a deprived town that struggled after the coal mines closed. Yeah. And it's really, really a lovely story.
It is.
And it's not just the Hollywood stars pumping money in. They've made sensible business decisions in what is considered a high-risk sector. You don't go into football normally to make money.
No.
You go in because of passion.
Yeah.
Therefore, even these Hollywood stars like Ryan Reynolds, they need to manage that investment. And he's done a fantastic job.
He has. It's run, like you say, sensibly like a business. That's how they run it. And naturally, having people like that and seeing the story, it now makes them attractive proposition to players who maybe would have never thought of joining Wrexham, and now the opportunity comes about. And I think yeah, maybe I want to be part of that story and the history of what's happening there. And I think it's
And if
it's
you're
a
a
great
10-year-old boy looking to pick a 6-year-old boy looking to pick your side, why not one that's associated with Hollywood?
Yeah. Well, you see,
And all
the,
the Avengers stars and Deadpool. I don't think he's Avengers, but the whatever one it is, it's that Hollywood attraction married with the football. So I think it's great.
it is. I mean, 10 years ago, I think if you were in Wrexham, probably the fan base was Wrexham and maybe a few people who've moved out of Wrexham that still follow the club. That would be the fan base. And now you look and you see this kid's wearing Wrexham shirts in the US, in Asia. It's absolutely crazy.
I had hoped that we'd see that with Salford, but probably living in the shadow of Manchester, the two big clubs, they're maybe a little bit harder. But that was an exciting story. It started just not got the success of.
No, they've taken them so far, obviously
Yep.
got them into the Football League, but what we're seeing is it's not as easy as you think to just go up, and you can't throw money at it because of the fair play awards rules, and it's an interesting dynamic. But up here as well, we've seen obviously the worrying story about Inverness, for example, real financial struggles, but now we see them starting to bounce back, and that is a great thing to see in terms of a community that gets behind the club and realizes, right, we need to ensure that the club stays, because there's nothing worse than people losing the team they've followed for their whole lives. And it's not just one person, this is generations of families that have perhaps followed the team, kids have gone with parents and grandparents and so on, and you want that to carry on for the long-term future.
I think one of the challenges in investing in a sport which as a business, using your hard-earned money to buy a club, is that you've got to disassociate the business decision from the fan decision. And that's a very hard thing to do. I mean, Mike Ashley was famous in Newcastle for not doing what the fans wanted. Everyone thought it was great when he first came in. There'd be money thrown at to get players, and there probably was, I can't remember. But at some point it becomes a business decision. And there are so many facets to a football club. It's not just the team. You've got to work out, how do I manage to make sure I've got the up and coming people? So it's the junior teams, whether that's the youth, whether that's the reserves. You've got to work, how does that feed in? How do they get enough games? Do I have to lend them to other clubs to get them experience so that I can bring them in with more experience into the first team when they're ready and keep my cost base down? It's not just a burger van, I've got a whole catering outfit. I mean, we're here at Hampden today, and it's Friday. There is no game on. I don't know if the cameras are going to show the pitch, but there is nobody out there training. The car park, where I thought I would get to choose a car parking space, is pretty busy. These sports clubs have activity all the time. It's not just 11 people on a pitch and a coach shouting instructions. There's a huge ecosystem. We talked a bit about hospitality in our Scottish series, and these are putting on events. Yes, you want your team to win, but there's events from musicians and other things happening all the time. And that takes an army of people. It takes resources. It means that you're running a business that's got lots of facets to it. How do you manage those risks? You're not just making one item to sell. You've got myriad of customers, no guaranteed revenue. Football clubs and the tourists, when they're successful, they get more revenue. When they're poor, they're struggling because the occasional fan doesn't spend with an unsuccessful club. So it's a real risk challenge, and being on top of how you make those business decisions, I suspect, is critical.
I completely agree. It's got to have a sensible plan, a sensible structure, and the realization that, yes, we can occasionally have some losses, but running a business that always incurs a loss, it's not going to be good for the long-term future. And that's what we're starting to see. Those clubs that are doing that are now paying the penalty, really, and now like effectively looking for new investment and new owners or whatever it may be. But that's not that easy if you've been relegated, you've got points deductions. I mean, again, more iconic clubs, we see the shambles that's happened at Sheffield Wednesday, for example, still in negative points this season. And just, it's so sad to see when These are really historic clubs, historic stadiums. But if you've got poor management and not willing to invest in your infrastructure and make sure you've got the right people that can make the decisions to say, no, we're not spending that because we can't afford to spend that. And ultimately, everyone's chasing the golden ticket, whether that's promotion to the next division for money or winning a trophy, selling an asset. But it has to be done not at the long-term expense of the club. And that's what I think is the challenge and the dynamic.
I mean, there's quite a lot of challenges, these sort of points that you raise. One of the things I think about in certainly our business and Acumen and most of our clients is, who are the stakeholders? You know, very often you think stakeholders would be your suppliers, you could be your customers, you know, you might even have a regulator there. But actually, when you look at a football club, you've got a huge array. You've got a real brand. You're trying to attract a community.
Yeah.
That community may not be interested in football, but they might buy a shirt for a friend. They might go and buy a season ticket for somebody else. Their community is there. You've got to work that community, that stakeholder group, the press, the media, all those things. That it's such a fascinating area. But when you've got a business that's struggling and is looking for investment, an investor has to have a vision. Now, some investors have their own vision. They'll bring it to the table and you can discuss that. But if you're trying to raise investment and you've got a loss-making business, if you're looking for investment, you have to have a plan. You have to be able to say why this investment makes sense, because otherwise you're asking for a donation.
Yeah.
And you need to do what you want. If you want an investment, there has to be some economic rationale, some financial payback. Now, there's risks attached, there's no guarantees, and that's the challenge for the business that's losing money, going down the table and potentially going to get relegated with the risks and financial penalties that can have. So I think managing that asset, that investment of a football club or another sports club as a business makes a change to de-risk what many fans don't really understand when they look at their.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a key part of that is, and it's the same with business in terms of getting success, is the culture of the business. What do we want to do? What is our value, and what do we provide all stakeholders, whether that's customers, our staff, etc. It's getting that right. And I think a really good example of that is, obviously, we're at Hampden. We could talk about Sir Alex as probably the greatest manager of all time, Scottish manager. If we look at the success that Manchester United had during his tenure, it all came from an ethos and a culture that came through the club from the day you join as possibly even a small child as the time you join the club. But we see the value that he has. He wants to speak to the parents of the child and explain what's going to happen at each stage of the development and the process, and really acting as not just a manager, but the leader. That's what you're looking for, a true leader. And look at the success he's had as United manager. I think that'll be unrivaled. I don't see anyone ever being as successful.
Just to try to help people understand what we mean by culture, 'cause sometimes it's a bit of a esoteric sort of phrase. If you imagine a football team that's got a star and brings in a star player and it just doesn't work out, it doesn't mean the star player wasn't good. He couldn't fit into that team structure. And that's what bad culture is. You need to be able to ensure that everyone is pulling in the right direction. That team is working as individuals, yes, but as a team, they're progressing. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about in business. We want the team, all the employees working together for a common goal, moving in the same direction. And that's best achieved with a good culture, but also we need to have an effective leader. It's not having a leader. Every business has a leader. Sometimes they have two or three, but it's only of use if you can implement what you want. There's no point articulating and nothing happens. The best managers in football, the best coaches, are the ones that get their team to do what they want them to do. It's not just saying go and score goals. They've got to get the team into the right place, the ball where it's meant to be, the players thinking about the right places to run, the right passes to make. And that's the challenge. It's how do you affect your vision as a leader?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's probably the most common thing we see, certainly in football, where perhaps the club has made a big money signing that they think is like you say going to be a big success, but for whatever reason they don't fit into the team dynamic. It just doesn't work. But that can have a negative impact on the wider team if that player is, I don't know, a bit sulky, wants to be player, thinks he's the star player, whatever it may be. That can have a real detrimental impact. And that's the same in any business. If you can have some of the best individuals, but if they don't gel together as a team and work cohesively, ultimately you're probably not going to be successful as a business, and you need to work on how you get that culture to work in your business.
We've got a consulting, Acumen Consulting, as you know, and very often we're coming into insight, analysing what's happened. But every now and again, we have a chief executive who comes to us and asks us to prove his view. And we do our work, and we're there to give him the backing so that he can implement his decisions. Sometimes we're in for problems. We've got to come up with what the issue is and how to resolve it. And occasionally we get asked to say, this is where I want to go. Can you put your stamp of approval to say this is it? I will go to my board and say, look, Acumen has said this is the right way to go. So this is right. I want to do this. And both are going to be effective. The former one, where we more often are trying to solve problems, are essential because the problem needs to be solved. The other one is about how does a leader affect change?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it is that how do you get the change that drives positive results in a business, and like you say, those that can implement those changes effectively are the ones that are your naturally strong leaders.
So we sometimes talk about risk with clients quite often, and many people don't understand that doing nothing is actually a risk in itself. Your competitors will move forward. We don't play football like we did in the 90s. The players are better, whether that's nutritional improvement. So if you carried on playing like you did in the 50s, they just wouldn't be successful. That's just the evolution. Your businesses will improve, your competitors will improve, and you need to react to that. So the do nothing option is an option. It's a valid option, but only a valid option if it's actively considered as the best option, not the lazy answer of, I don't want to make a decision. Make a decision to do nothing or do something. That is fine. You're managing your risk. You're making decisions. You're on top of it. The person who decides to just be lazy and gets taken over, don't you?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You've got to keep moving forward. And I think certainly if we look at even in sport, look at the advancements in technology that's coming in there, the monitoring of distance covered, the technology that goes into analysing set pieces. This is something I hadn't even realised. I was reading an article the other day about clubs employ corner coaches now so that they set up to do specific things for that, because every small thing matters and can give you a competitive edge. And that's the same in business. I think we're coming into a period now with obviously advancements in AI. Even over the last 12 months, you've seen huge change coming in, and I think that's going to impact business across the board. And really, it's time for those businesses that can embrace AI and see it as a positive to their business and adapt to it, and how perhaps the services you offer slightly change, or you can offer better services, different services. That's going to be the key. Those that can't move forward with the advancements are sadly going to be left behind over the next couple of years. I really think the next 5 years. We obviously had the Industrial Revolution when you go back a couple of years. I really think AI is one of the next major revolutions that the world is going to see over the next few years.
And certainly where we stand today, not every client is going to be able to see how AI is going to change their business. But I think it's naive of them to ignore the possibility that it might. And therefore they need to explore it. If they can't speak, maybe one of their employees, maybe speak to their accountant, try and understand what it means. What's a competitor going to do with AI? And then you can see how you can respond to that challenge.
Yeah, that's going to be completely it. It's understanding how AI can help my business. How can I use it? And I think the worry is it's seen as a negative, and it shouldn't be seen as a negative, because it creates huge opportunity for businesses. And I think those that can really invest in upskilling themselves and understanding. And I think the thing with AI is that it gives perhaps someone who's not even from a software background the opportunity to dabble in these things and create their own solutions. So I think it's an open playing field for people to look into, and I think don't be afraid of it. I think you have to embrace it. It's going to become part of everyday life. So I think you need to take it on board, but see it as an opportunity rather than a threat, I think is
okay. So we'll call it there. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. This is Acumen Scotland and Stuart, and thank you, Jack, from the iconic Hampden Stadium. Thank you.
Thank you very much.